Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business Live. I'm looking forward to having Richard Flentge on the show. Richard, it's great to connect with you. I feel like we're fast friends in the 7 minutes that we've known each other before
That's
we went
what
on.
I felt. So.
Right. Joining us today, we have a co-host, Noah, and I may say this wrong, Sarangeli. Sarangeli, right. My phonics is that of a fourth grader. So I talk about that sometimes on my show. Noah's a senior at CU and in environmental studies. He's part of another company that I have, which is called Launch 3, which is a coaching platform for 18 to 26-year-olds. I thought it'd be great to have him on this show, Richard, because you're an author. You have a book, which we're going to talk about. You're into renewable energy. You're the former co-host of EV TV, and you've just got a really cool background. And you've been doing renewable energy for a while. Let's talk about renewable energy for a minute. For those who are not familiar with it, can you define it for everybody in kind of a layman term?
Renewable energy is energy created by a force that is basically eternal, everlasting, does not burn fuel. So that would be wind, water, and solar primarily. There are a few other variations in kinetic energy, but primarily solar, wind, and hydro.
Yeah.
So those three.
And it's interesting. So I think this is worth talking about because, here we have Noah, who has a background kind of growing up around this and has majored in it. You've been in it for a while. I'm curious to kind of get the conversation going. How did you, success is never a straight line. So how did you fall into this? And then I'd love to know, Noah, how you did too, and how maybe the different generations look at renewable energy.
Okay. I fell into it actually through a family relation and a connection to a fellow entrepreneur. I was in another business background and I had left that. And this guy was taking gasoline cars, primarily Volkswagens, and removing the gasoline engine and putting it into electric drives with batteries. And I thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
And then as I got into it, I sort of got the rest of the environmental picture.
Yeah.
It became very convincing as the more I studied and experienced that what we were going into was the future. And that was probably 2011, 2010.
Yeah.
They call me an original gangster.
You are an original gangster. It's funny when I graduated college in 1995, I started an internet company with my brother and a buddy, and I would be at Barnes and Noble studying this thing called the internet. And it's like nobody really knew anything about it, but we knew, and I knew. My buddy Jason always comes up. We always laugh about it. We still laugh about it today. He'll say, "John, I remember he's running into it, Barnes and Noble, and saying, 'What are you doing?' And you're like, 'I'm studying the internet.'"
Yeah.
And but I knew it was going to be something huge, and you just got the gut. I want to get back to that feeling of it. But what I love about your story, and I'm going to let Noah talk, is I interviewed my trainer Hayden Nickerman the other day, and one of the things he was talking about was how you got to be open to just random things coming your way. And that to me is what you're talking about, right? The randomness. Noah, I'd love to know kind of why you chose this, and then questions you have for Richard, because it's good to have different generations and different thoughts that spur what tomorrow brings.
Absolutely. So my introduction to renewable energy was also pretty random. Originally, I grew up in Martin County, Florida, where we saw a lot of agricultural runoff from Lake Okeechobee. And that kind of sparked my interest in environmental law and policy work. And after my first year at CU Boulder as a political science student, doing some independent research, I kind of came to the realization that you know, if I want to drive positive change and kind of do my due diligence with the environment, I think there is more strides and more opportunity to be made in renewable energy. It's such a important field, and it's growing rapidly every day. And we really need our best and brightest to be working at this.
Yeah. So what questions do you have for Richard, right? So he's in front of you, right? So we all need pace horses, I think, right? We all need pace horses. And so when you look and to me, and it's one thing I love about, you know, I have this Launch 3 business. I have a business partner, David Chernow, and we built this company where it's 18 to 26-year-olds. It's a coaching platform for them on life, building their brand and their career. And so I learn as much from them as they're learning, you know, from the program and from us. So what questions do you have looking forward, Noah, maybe for Richard on, you know, on your career path?
Totally. So Richard, my first question to you would be, you kind of touched on that work you were doing, replacing the gas car engines with electric. Was that your primary interest that kind of sparked you into this career, or were there other ones along the way that kind of reinforced that?
That was the primary interest. And originally it was more of a hot rod mindset.
Oh.
We were kind of doing it because it was really cool. And
Yeah.
we did Porsches, little mini speedsters and Porsches. And in the background, there's always this, there's a lot of inefficiency in the gas motor. And basically what comes out of the tailpipe is poison, and you smell the fumes. And we kind of had that in the background, but originally it started as guys in the garage and wanted to do something cool. And that is how a lot of things start. You know, if you look at entrepreneurs, a lot of it is homemade. Now I had a little bit of I fixed up vehicles at the same time before that. And then after I understood the technology, I began, and at the same time, the Tesla story was rising up. So I basically, they would say I drank the Kool-Aid at that point and really became fully immersed in the entire movement. So.
But I want to rewind a little bit. Did you have another question on that, Noah?
I was just going to say, Richard, I love that you kind of took a passion of yours and transformed it into this renewable energy driven work. I think that's great.
Yeah.
I dubbed myself in one of my blogs an accidental environmentalist.
Yeah.
You know,
and my dad, sorry, go ahead.
No, I would say, you're a young person, and, you know, I grew up back when cigarettes were popular, and then all of a sudden the light bulb goes off and you realize these are harming people, you know, and I it's sort of the same revelation with the auto. You know, they're burning fuel, they're burning particulates. It's coming out somewhere. So you know, the light bulb kind of went off with that stuff. But anyhow.
Yeah. Two things. My dad was a dentist, and growing up, all of his friends were dentists, and we had something called the accidental camping trip or the accidental ski trip, right? So that way they could like productize it and write it off. It was brilliant. Yeah. So but I want to go back to what Noah said and what you're talking about. A bunch of guys in a garage doing something that they love and they're passionate about, and Noah recognizing the passion, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business people, they're trying to find something, but it's really right in front of them. It's hidden in plain sight, and it really should be something that you love, and maybe see a gap. You love and try to figure out a way that you can actually make money and scale a business. And so can you talk a little bit about that, kind of staying in the lane of your unique ability and what you love and finding the career within that?
Yeah, absolutely. The point I would make to that is that if you do it homemade, if you rig it up yourself, and I'm more product orientated, it's when you can do something that you shorten the time and you make it easier to do that function. And an example would be we stacked batteries. Okay. So we took a copper bar, we bent it at 90 degrees, we drilled holes, we added insulation. Now, everybody that wanted to stack batteries or do connections had to go through the same process. And yeah, you could make your own connecting straps in your home shop, but we could do it. And then it was that much quicker and that much faster. And I would say, from the homegrown entrepreneur, you take something that you know is needed in that application and you
Yeah.
make it just cheaper than what it costs them to do it themselves. And they will
Yeah.
buy it.
Yeah.
It makes it easier. So, and the connecting of batteries is a big part of it. It's that
Yeah.
simple.
I love that.
Richard,
I
I've
love
got
it.
a question related to the subject of batteries, and especially with electric vehicles. What are your thoughts on the current battery technology for electric vehicles? Do you think it's sufficient enough to take us away from a gas-centric car society, or do you think be further work done?
No, absolutely. They are well down the road. The technology is lithium ion, and that is a very efficient way to hold the electrons. Tesla uses a round cylinder battery, like your AAs that go in your radio.
Right.
And when Tesla used that technology, they were able to buy the equipment that was already somewhat in place, like with Duracell and that. And then they were able to modify that to mass produce batteries. So the base technology is here and the base chemistry is here. They talk about improving batteries, but when they improve batteries, it increases the cost. So there is a equilibrium of, yeah, you could have a car that drives 800 miles on a battery, but are people going to pay $150,000 or $200,000 for the car? And you have to have a pragmatic battery, and we have that now. And I would say, if you want to study anything in environmental science, it's all about the battery at this point. So that's really where everybody is going to be focused.
Have you watched the? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Let me just say one thing real quickly, and then you can ask. Have you seen the moonshot thinking video, Richard or Noah? Right. If I, it's Noah. Have you seen it? I'll send it to you if you haven't. It's one of my favorite videos. I watch it all the time. It's all about reverse engineering, rewinding, and rebuilding things, and it's brilliant. Noah, what were you going to ask?
I was just going to say, I think you're completely right, Richard, in saying that environmental studies, sustainability, and energy, I mean, the future is in battery technology. And one of the things we focus on in my studies is kind of trying to reach that equilibrium, not only of cost effectiveness, but also of the extraction methods to begin with. Because, at the end of the day, these are rare earth metals that we're using to build these batteries, and we make them. So that is the challenge.
Yeah, and we use a lot of stuff in a lot of technology. There's a lot of mining that goes on. I wrote a chapter about Caterpillar, which is a big mining company. But yeah, your rare earths are much more used in cell phone batteries, in your smartphones. So they don't use as much in the car batteries, but they do. The lithium is pretty widely available.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's part of it, but humans have a ecology. I mean, we mine all kinds of stuff all the time. We're ripping the earth up every day for all kinds of things. So it's good that it's you watch after it, but yeah. I can before we're done, I can give you a lot of answers. I've studied it for years, and written about it.
You guys will connect for sure after this too. But I want to ask you a question, Richard. You've mentioned you wrote a chapter, you've written this. Let's talk about your book for a moment. Tell us about your book, because I always love talking to business people. I love talking to authors. Um, and a book is filled with so much knowledge of somebody's expertise that you can get in just a couple hours, right, of reading or listening to if it's on Audible. Tell us before you tell us about the book, what was the purpose of writing the book?
Well, in talking about renewable energy, I really saw a lot of trolling, a lot of communication mix. A lot of people built a force up against it and I didn't think anybody really had put together a book that covers the history, that gives us some real world stories, as well as some solutions in more of a book written context. And they're just in our environment, and Noah, what you live in, very contaminated communication, very, very short conversations, very short descriptions, single word or single line headlines that stick people, when the truth of the matter needs quite a bit of complex discussion. And the book just gives much more in-depth discussion to a subject that I don't think I would ever be allowed on TV to fight back about anyhow. Of rebuttal to what goes on in the world, basically.
Yeah. What's one or two takeaways that someone's gonna takeaways or insights or new perspectives that they're gonna walk away from reading the book?
I cover a wide range of subjects. I talk about the history, where we got the term the barrel, how inefficient a lot of our energies were throughout history, where Ford came from, and then I go to really topical conclusions, talk about West Texas, and then at the very end, I sort of wrap it up to what would really the future be like if we were completely energy independent.
Yeah.
And kind of sort of these final conclusions to the dreams of Richard Flentge, I guess, how we would make a perfect renewable energy world. And I'll get you guys, I'll send you copies of it. I can zip over a PDF and you guys can take a look at it.
That'd be great.
Richard, for some viewers who maybe haven't had a chance to read your book yet, you mentioned you touch on what your kind of future vision of a energy independent society looks like. Can you just touch on a couple points of maybe what that would look like here?
Yeah. The first thing to give you the background, Noah, so you understand, we took the batteries out of wrecked Teslas.
Mm-hmm.
So we had these large battery banks, and then we started developing product, repurposing Tesla batteries. So we had to develop a controller, you had to have software, you had to have coding, and then we hooked it up to a solar grid, and we developed what would be called a microgrid. We became completely energy independent. And the first thing that I would tell you is that you'd have to monitor all that goes on. You have to monitor what is coming in your solar array. You have to monitor how much energy or the state of charge of your batteries. And then you have to monitor your loads or how much electricity is going out. And we had a central monitor, and that was something that a product I helped develop. So you could watch the sun coming out, the energy going in. You could say, my battery's at 47 kilowatts. It needs to be at 60 kilowatts. Last night, the refrigerator ran too much and it used up 5 or 6 kilowatts. You have to have an entire big picture of all three elements: what you produce, what you store, and what you use. And that would be, and that's, if you're looking at product or what is going to be coming down the pike, are going to be all sorts of products that relate to those three elements.
Definitely. And you touched on microgrids, and I'm interested on your opinion. What do you think is going to be easier for energy independence? Do you think these smaller scale adaptations are going to be easier compared to a big picture United States energy transition?
Both, basically. Two things you got to understand. The grid which is hundreds of thousands of miles of high voltage transmission lines, is basically a giant battery system.
Mhm.
There is energy stored in the transportation of the energy. It is highly inefficient. So, in the big picture, they will break apart the grid. And instead of having the grid and its transmission lines as the storage, people will develop reservoir systems of batteries that will store it. Now, on the other end, the homeowner will develop a storage system as well as a renewable system. Most likely, and this is what I write in the book, the fastest way to do this is not for everybody to put solar panels on their house. The fastest way to do it is to have a car with a full battery that you go home and you just plug your battery with the energy stored into it into a bidirectional system, and then your home operates off of your car storage. So you could separate where you could have solar arrays at a different location than where the energy is used at. You could go to work, you could plug your car in, you could fill it up. You could go home, plug your car into your home, and operate your home all night. And you would have complete energy independence, and it would be completely renewable.
Wow.
So that's
You
the
guys,
quickest.
yeah, the two of you are going to change the world. I'll continue to
Believe
interview
so.
you. You
Yeah.
two continue to change the world.
Yeah.
It's it's the power of. I want to talk a little bit about the power of mentorship, right?
Mhm.
And having resources to reach out to, right? For me, as I continually learn more about this. Because I understand about, I don't know, maybe 32% of what the two of you are talking about right now. But I don't need to know that much more. I just need to know who to call, right?
Yeah.
It's surrounding yourself with mentors. And so, Richard, I rewind with me, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. Who was a mentor to you that kind of gave you some guidance that you've carried along the way, that's helped you to get to where you are today, to make you who you are today? And I think it's always good for me to hear, and I think it's good for the Noahs to know the power of mentorship.
Yeah, I had a very strong mentor and really a friend. His name was Jack Rickard. And again, he was a old school entrepreneur. And let me explain how old school he was. He was ex-military, and when the internet began kicking up, he began a publication. It was originally called a bulletin board, way back, and guys would post, and then you could access the page and see their post. And so the original search engine was called a board watch, a board. So this guy developed a guideline for a board, but he was a mentor who definitely coached me into focusing quite a bit and really studying a niche. And I guess the other advice that he really beat in my head was every day, even if you move a slight bit towards your goal, even if you change it 1%, in 100% in 100 days, you'll be quite a bit farther. So every single day, every single day, if you can make an improvement, if you can clean a file, if you can write another note page, even if it's not a giant workload, you just simply every day fertilize and grow your project towards the goal.
Yeah.
So,
Amen to that. That is such great advice. I'll add one thing to that, because I am complete in alignment with what you just shared. So thank you to you and your mentor for sharing that. Is when you plant a seed, you can't scream at it to grow. You have to, like you said, you have to water it, you have to fertilize it, you have to be patient, and it will grow, and it will grow tremendously if you are consistent with the 1% that you're talking about. When I look at a penny that doubles every day for 30 days, right? The question, would you take $1 million today or a penny that doubles every day for 30 days? Well, some would say the million, but when you look at the compounding of a penny that doubles every day, it's 10.7 million at the end.
Yeah.
But it really doesn't start getting its traction until day 27 when it's about 672,000. And so if every time you stop, you go back to 1. So I just want to echo what you're saying. Noah, any questions you have for Richard? Looking at Richard as a mentor, you're still finishing up CU. What question do you have for him?
I guess my question to kind of leave you with or end this with would be, what industry specifically within the applicability of renewable energy do you see growing the most? For example, the car industry, transportation, like you said, home.
Long term, it's all around battery tech. And there are a lot of really smart engineers that are in that. So that industry within automobiles is a huge application. The secondary application is going to be in utility and grid storage. And if you look at those two areas, that's what's going to have the most impact. It's going to be breaking up the grid, and it's going to be the automobile. Those two things will eliminate the tailpipes the fastest. Now, I will tell you is that, and one thing I wanted to leave you with is solar works. There are a lot of parts of the world that are in lower latitudes that are closer to the equator that they get a tremendous amount of solar energy. So the thing I want you to think about is solar works in southern Arizona. Solar works in the south part of Texas. It doesn't work in Michigan. Okay. But every day we ship coal from Wyoming all the way to the East Coast of the United States. Now, what if we took solar energy from Arizona, stored it in a battery on a train, and shipped that to Chicago? The answers are here. And that's the one thing I will tell you is that, but you got to think outside the box, and you got to be able to see that picture. If we're transporting coal to create energy, why don't we just transport energy, electrical energy ready to go? So
I love it.
That's where I would be looking.
I love it. We're going to do a 60-second mini business course on renewable energy. You ready?
Sure.
All right. 3 things that everybody needs to know about renewable energy 101. First thing,
it has gaps. It has inefficiencies.
All right.
So you have to plan.
Yeah. Second thing,
it will require a lot of computing, and it will require a lot of coding.
All right. Third thing,
energy independence sets people free. When you no longer have to pay a utility bill, and you no longer have to pay a gasoline transportation bill, your overall cost of living goes down.
I love it. Richard Flentge, this was great. More to come, but I like to do a little quick mini business course. All right. My last question before we get to kind of our final speed round is, what advice would you give? What's something that they don't teach you in college, especially about this right now, about renewable energy? What don't they teach in college that they need to?
Again, it leads towards independence, in that if the country as a whole can create its own energy sources, it becomes a very independent country. It sets people free. And it also eliminates the potential and the future problems of us basically poisoning our planet or poisoning our environment. So there's a big picture, long-term trajectory that we need to coincide our focus on. So.
All right, good. All right, quick speed round. You ready, Richard?
Mm-hmm.
I'll ask the first question. Noah can ask the next question. I'll ask the final question.
Okay.
A book or a TED Talk or an article that's had a big impact on you.
I like The Goal.
It's a great book.
Manufacturing book.
Yeah.
Which the point really is that you have a time frame that you work with, a point, and you balance out what you're doing, basically.
Yeah. All right.
Richard, what project are you most proud of that you've created?
Probably a Tesla Model 3 battery stand, and I developed a vertical mount, and then I also had a tremendous impact on the monitoring system of the batteries. So those two things ended up. A battery is very heavy and it's very flat, and we turned it up vertical where you could move it up against the wall. That was probably my coolest thing I did in renewable energy.
It's great. Last question, Richard. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
Again, it goes back to every single day you make, even if it's a small percentage, every single day you make a percentage gain.
Yeah.
And a lot of days I do not have a lot of success either in writing or what I'm working on. But then by golly, I'll say, I moved the chains. I moved the football down the field a little bit. And eventually you look back and you realize you've gained a lot of ground.
Yeah. Richard, I love that. And I'm really grateful and appreciative that you took time to be on the podcast today. And no, I'm glad that you were able to co-host. This all kind of came about in the last 15 minutes. And, you had signed up to be a mentor for launch-3.com. Noah and I were talking yesterday. He's like, hey, do you have anybody in your mentor hub that's a renewable energy consultant? And I just thought it would be really kind of fun to put you guys together. I learned a lot. Think Community, I hope you learned a lot. Richard, I'm a business coach. I work with people all over the globe who are successful but stuck. I get them unstuck. And what I love about the podcast is I get to have guests like you and Noah, even though he's a co-host, and a guest, to get people unstuck and provide guidance. You're doing that through your knowledge, through your education, through your book, and I'm really grateful for it. I always like to extract one thing, which has been kind of a through line of today, which is grow 1% a day. And in 100 days, you've grown 100%. And one of the things I talk a lot about is micro goals and micro wins. At the end of every day, write down 1 to 3 wins that you had for the day, 1 to 3 wins for the next day, so you can set the intent and 1 to 3 things you're grateful for. It's a really good way, especially in a market that's adjusting and that has the challenges that we're seeing in today. So really grateful to have you on the show. Tell people where they can connect with you, learn more about you, and get your book.
I have a full media site. It's richardflentge.com, RICHARDFLENTG.com. I have several other podcasts that I've done, books, writings, blogs, and as an original gangster, I was there for several. I was there for the Tesla story before Tesla was cool.
Yeah.
The movie Who Killed the Electric Car. I met the director of that. I just got a whole lot of old school stories. And the fun part about it was before Tesla was cool.
Yeah.
If I had only bought more of that stock,
Well, woulda, coulda, shoulda. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. All right, Noah, how can people connect with you if they want to connect with you?
Noah Sarangeli on LinkedIn, Noah.Sarangeli on Instagram. If you go to CU Boulder, find me in the SEEK Environmental Studies Center or the Leeds School of Business.
All right, good. Awesome. All right, good. And Think Community, you can reach me at johndwoskin.com. The 18 to 26-year-old coaching platform I have is launch-3, the number 3.com. Everybody stay on for just a minute. Think Community, thank you. Richard, thank you. Noah, thank you. Great job. No, Richard, we got to give Noah some kudos because we talked at 11:47. I think I said, "Why don't you hop on?" He had no idea, didn't prep, and you did great. Great job, Noah. Great job. Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you all.